Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sumayya Hassan. Welcome to Aspire. In this series where we are talking about personal branding, in today's show, we are going to talk about part 1 of feedback. And today we will talk about how to give feedback, inshallah. And in the next session of Aspire, we will talk about how to receive feedback. Both of these two are very important aspects to build when we look at the role that feedback plays as far as personal development is concerned in shaping one's personal brand. So whether it is receiving constructive criticism or gaining positive reinforcement, feedback can help to provide very valuable insights that can help you to grow, to develop, and to refine your skills. And so as we explore this area of feedback as a personal branding tool and as a means of helping us to build our personal and social skills, we seek to draw wisdom from the Holy Quran and the Hadith, which offer timeless guidance and principles for every aspect of our lives, including on personal growth. So, as we look at giving of feedback, it's important to just set some context. If you are the person giving feedback, there is somebody that you want to help, there's somebody that you've seen some opportunities for improvement. How should you go about giving feedback? Remember, giving feedback effectively is an essential skill for providing constructive guidance, for helping to foster growth, and also for improving relationships. The key word here is effectively. It is very possible to give a lot of feedback, but because it is not effective, it creates a lot of friction, it creates a lot of disharmony, and that is not the objective of why you're giving feedback. As always, we are guided by the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innamal a'malu binniyat. What is your intention of giving this feedback? So start there by checking in with yourself and your intentions. Why am I giving this person this feedback? Am I looking to positively impact and influence their growth? Or do I want to pull them down? Do I want to make them feel very bad about themselves? I want to make them feel very bad about the situation, or I feel, that this person, unfortunately, some people have the mindset that maybe so-and-so is seeming to be coming up too quickly in their business or in their career or what have you. So you want to look like you're giving feedback, but in reality, you are actually poisoning this person's mind in a manner that you want to hold them back. So start with your intention. Why are you seeking to give this feedback? Do you really believe that your intention is to try and assist and do the right thing? And if you honestly, in your quiet moment, checking in with yourself, realize that maybe my intention isn't all that good, then that starting this process by checking in with yourself may help you stop yourself from doing something that could be potentially damaging to another person rather than it being something helpful. And sometimes one of the ways for you to do that is to check in with somebody that you trust. I want to give feedback to somebody, and depending on the situation, you may want to preserve confidentiality. Maybe you don't want to share the specifics, but you can have consultation with somebody you trust without going into specific confidential details. I would like to give feedback to somebody on this and that area because of this and that reason. And listen to this person that you trust. What do they say? Somebody may say, no, I don't think it's necessary for you to do that, because maybe they know a little bit more about the context and they can see that you will actually not be helping. You will be making the situation perhaps worse. So when you're not very sure about whether what you want to do is the right thing or not in giving this feedback, sometimes checking in with a trusted person. In a hadith, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that the one who points out to his brother a fault in order to rectify matters between them is not a slanderer. And so if your objective is to rectify, then that is a good objective for you to seek to give the feedback, because you want to do something positive. You are building. You're not seeking to destroy, but you are seeking to build. And so once you've checked in with your intention, here are some tips to consider when giving feedback. Number one, be truthful and be specific. We are told in a hadith that truthfulness leads to righteousness, and righteousness leads to paradise. So don't give feedback that is not truthful. It may sound obvious, but sometimes people give feedback that when you examine it a little bit more, you realize actually this is not true. Not only is the feedback they are giving not true, even the situation they are talking about may not be true. So be truthful and be specific. Be very clear in identifying the behavior or the situation that you are addressing. Feedback which is vague can be very confusing and not very actionable. So you've told somebody something, it's not clear, it's all jumbled up, they don't know what you mean and they don't know what to do with what you've told them. So be truthful and be specific on the feedback that you're giving. Number two, focus on the behavior, not the person. What you're seeking to do here is to direct your feedback towards specific actions or outcomes by being clear on the type of behaviors that you want to, that you're recommending that somebody looks to rectifying, rather than criticizing the individual. What this does, it helps to maintain a very respectful and non-threatening environment, and one that encourages the recipient to listen with an open mind to what you're saying, and a mind that is accepting that what you're saying should lead to positive improvement. The Quran tells us in Surah Al-Hujurat, chapter 49, verses 11 to 12, where it tells us, O you who have believed, let not a people ridicule another people. Perhaps they may be better than them. And then it goes on to also tell us, and do not backbite one another. Would one of you like to eat the flesh of his brother when dead? You would detest it. And so the point here that we are picking from this surah is that from this particular verses, when you're giving feedback, you should not look at this as an opportunity to ridicule the other person. The fact that somebody made a mistake somewhere, somebody had a gap that you feel you can come and help them correct and improve, does not make you better than them. So giving feedback is not about you being better than the other person. It is about you having identified a specific situation or a specific behavior that you believe there's an opportunity to improve, which doesn't make you better. We have been told, كل ابن آدم خطاء. Every human being is a wrongdoer or makes mistakes. So certainly that you are the one giving the feedback does not make you better than the other person, and so you should not use it as an opportunity to ridicule the other person. Focus on the behavior and not the person. Number 3, use the I statement when you're giving feedback. So the way in which you want to frame your feedback is by saying I rather than you. Now what that does is that it conveys your personal perspective. Meaning that you also acknowledge that you could be wrong. I am giving you feedback from my perspective, but I am as human as you, and therefore my likelihood of making mistakes is as much as yours. I could very well be wrong in my feedback, and that is why I should frame my feedback from an I perspective. This also helps me to avoid sounding like I'm accusing you. You did this, and then you did that, and that already puts you on the defensive. It makes it sound like this person is being very, accusatory to you, and so it's very easy for you to shut down when somebody is giving you feedback. But when you tell somebody, I noticed, I felt that, I sensed. So already you are packaging this from your perspective, which already means you're already making yourself vulnerable, even as you're giving feedback. That I felt already could mean maybe I wasn't right in my feelings. I sensed maybe the lens I was using perhaps may not have been appropriate for that situation. So use I rather than you when giving feedback. Number 4, be timely. This means that you want to time your feedback to as close as the situation, as the behavior that you're seeking to correct as possible, because then the details are fresh in the mind of the recipient. They can relate, they can understand, it resonates, and they can say, yes, of course, I can, I see what you mean, I understand. But if you're giving feedback months after the action has taken place, 1 year later, and you come, I want to give you feedback, something that I observed that you did, last year. What? Really? I can hardly remember what I ate for dinner last night. You want to give me feedback on what I did last year? So we can spend a lot of time trying to analyze, really, did I do that last? Are you sure? Maybe, and you can have a whole other argument about whether this actually happened, only because your feedback is not timely. But if your feedback happens as close to the observed behavior, it's still fresh. And it's very easy, if there were nuances, for somebody to pick, actually, you know what? It's true, and I appreciate that. I realize that if I haven't slept well the night before, I tend to be very irritable the next day, and so that perhaps influenced how I reacted, and thank you for pointing that out. It's fresh in somebody's mind. Is it likely that somebody will remember 1 year later that they hadn't slept well the night before the action that you're telling them about? Probably not. So be timely. Number 5, be balanced. Be balanced. Don't come at this with a whole wheelbarrow of negativities that this person has done, and you make somebody feel very, very low about the feedback that you're giving them. And so even when you want to give feedback on an area that somebody should improve on, start with the positive. You must be able to say something positive about any person. Think. Even that person that according to you, you cannot find anything positive, surely there is something positive that you can find if you apply your mind to it, and start with that. Start with the positive. Recognize the strength that this person has. Recognize achievements that this person has. Perhaps, they've recently had a certain milestone. Recognize that. This motivates the person. This helps to maintain confidence, and it creates a very good platform for them to receive the other areas of feedback. So do your research before going to have this conversation on the feedback, and particularly the more that maybe the sensitive the feedback you want to give, the more you want to start it off with something positive. And so do your research. What else has been going on in this person's life that is positive, and lead with that before you come with the feedback that could be very perhaps sensitive, or it's on an area that is going to be difficult perhaps for this person. Number 6, Be specific about improvement. We already spoke about being specific about the feedback. Now we are saying be specific about improvement, because once you've given the feedback, if you are able to identify areas for improvement or specific suggestions or actionable steps that the person can take to help them grow, to help them overcome their challenges, this is so much useful than a general statement like, yeah, okay, now, go and improve yourself, go and, turn this around, turn this situation around, It can be very vague for this person to do. My feedback to you is that you need to improve your people skills. Okay, what do I do with this feedback exactly? Which part of my people skills needs improvement? If you could be a bit more specific in the feedback, then I know, okay, what you mean is perhaps I'm too quick to intervene before I've listened. So perhaps what I need to work on are my listening skills, that I should listen first before I respond. Okay, I get that, I understand that. So be specific in your recommendations on areas for improvement. Number 7, use a constructive tone. If your tone is positive, if it is supportive during the feedback sessions, this encourages open dialogue, it encourages active listening and a willingness for somebody to understand what you're saying. Do not curse when you're giving feedback. Don't use swear words, don't use vulgar language. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us the believer is not a slanderer. Cursing, vulgar or obscene, none of these are qualities of a believer. So don't give feedback while you're throwing around all these obscenities and vulgar words, and don't. That's just not part of the characteristics of a believer. So be constructive, be polite, be kind. Feedback doesn't require that you should be abusive. So mind your language. Number 8, encourage self-reflection. Ask open-ended questions that prompt the other person to get into self-reflection, to get into critical thinking. So this way, you're encouraging the recipient of your feedback to also identify not only their own strengths, but their own areas of improvement. It becomes a much more interactive process than you coming at them like, it's a one-way street. You're just shooting at them. But you're actually encouraging them to participate in their own feedback process by asking open-minded questions that then gets them to think. And even before you say it, they have understood. See, this is part of hikmah, because then they understand where you're going with these open-ended questions, even without you needing to vocalize certain words, because you're framing it in a manner that they're actually participating in their feedback. Number 9, provide examples. This is very powerful. If you can have very specific examples or anecdotes that help the person, the recipient, understand the context of what you want to say, and therefore this behavior that you're talking about, when it is housed in a certain context, makes more sense. But when you come and say something which somebody doesn't, there's no context to this, and they may not even see it as a problem, and maybe in another context that behavior would actually not be a problem. So why is it a problem here? Because you have set the context, then I can understand. Oh yes, this type of tone may be appropriate if I am speaking to my peer, but not appropriate if I'm speaking to somebody who is older than me, somebody that perhaps is a relative who is older than you, somebody who is a senior to you. So context is important. Number 10, encourage two-way communication. And so what you want to do here is not have a monologue. Because I'm here to give you feedback, it's going to come from me to you. I am the one who knows all about this. You are the wrongdoer, you know nothing. And so sit there and listen. No. Encourage a space where the person receiving the feedback can ask questions, can seek for clarification, can share their own perspective of the situation that you're talking about, and you should equally be active in your listening, as they are also giving you their own perspective about what you're talking about. You also need to be empathetic. You are not there having all the right answers. You are there with a genuine intention to help this person. So therefore, be willing to listen and to empathize, and also to reframe your own thinking on the basis of what they've told you, because maybe what you thought you saw or heard, you also may have lacked a certain context, which if you understand, then may change your perspective on the behavior that you're seeking to correct. And finally, number 11, follow up. After giving feedback, periodically check in with this person just to see how are they progressing. If it is somebody whose growth you are invested in, you don't want this to be a one-off conversation. I already gave you feedback. What you do with it now is your business. No. Periodically checking with this person. How are they doing? Perhaps they need a bit of additional support along the way. Be willing and ready to offer it. And remember, the goal of giving feedback is to help the person grow and improve, and therefore approach it with empathy, approach it with respect, and a genuine desire to support their development. Don't take this as an opportunity to now paint them in a bad light publicly. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ told us that the one who conceals the faults of others in this world, Allah will conceal his faults on the day of resurrection. And so feedback is not about you now spreading whatever it is that this person has done or the aib of this person. You want to conceal. The hadith emphasizes on the need to maintain confidentiality and trust when we are providing this feedback. So inshallah, my dua for myself and for you, as you seek to provide feedback, let us do it in an environment that honors the trust between you and the person you're giving feedback to, so that we can foster an environment where people feel safe, not only to give but also to receive feedback, in an environment that helps us grow each other. Today, I may be the one giving feedback. Tomorrow, I could be the one receiving feedback. So let's maintain an environment that helps us look out for each other as we seek to grow and improve each other. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.